Heyo, it's Omnidog here. How's it going, everybody? Today I'm accepting and telling you about the 5-book challenge. I have accepted this challenge from Jake from The Brave and the Boys, who issued the challenge to me about a year and a half ago. So I'm finally getting to it. The 5-book challenge is the 5 books in your collection that are the most important books to you, to me. So, without further ado, here are the 5 most important books to me and the reasons why they are so important to me. So let's take a look. In no particular order, all 5 of them mean the exact same thing to me, and that you will see in just a sec why they mean that much to me. Yeah, okay, great, let's get started. Okay, so what I have here is the complete Frank Miller Batman. That is not the story that I'm referring to, although it does have a lot of great stories in it. The story I'm talking about in here is the book that brought me back into comics back in 1985, and that would be The Dark Knight Returns. I've kept it in this format. I used to have it in a wide variety of formats. Everybody knows about The Dark Knight Returns and how Frank Miller wrote this amazing book about Batman coming out of retirement as an older guy. And I was living in Los Angeles at the time in 1985. So I think I've told the story before about how I read in the LA Times about this new Batman book. I had been out of comics for at least 10 years. The Bronze Age wasn't doing it for me back in 76, 75, 74, 15, 16. Probably 74, 75 was about the last time I read any comic book. So I had been gone for 10 years. And this book brought me back into comics. And I am forever grateful to this book. Not only is it a great book, but it made me realize that comic books had matured. And they were something I was interested in. In this LA Times article, they described the story. And at this point, I had already missed the first printing of the first issue of Dark Knight Returns. So I went to Golden Apple, and I still remember the guy there because I went in there and I said, hey, that was the only comic book store. I looked in the Yellow Pages. That, of course, dates me. You can Google Yellow Pages to find out what they are. So I went there, and to the guy at the front of the counter, I said, I'm interested in finding out more about this Dark Knight Returns, and I'd really like to get a copy. At this point, I think probably issue 2 had come out in the prestige format at the time. And he said that he had 2 copies. One was the first printing of the first book, and that was $50 already. It had only been out, a couple months. And then he had the second printing had already come out, and so that was like $20. So he had already jacked the price up there. And he said, tell me what you know about Batman. And so, being the good Silver Age nerd that I was, I told him everything I knew about Batman, and that was a lot. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I put that $50 price tag on the first printing to keep away people who are just trying to flip it and make a profit and aren't really interested in it. But I can tell you're a fan. So I'm going to give you this first printing for $20. And I said, okay, great. So I took it home, I read it, and it brought me right back into comics. I followed that up the following year with Watchmen. I read it, all 12 issues of Watchmen. I collected them monthly, and I was back in it, and I have never looked back. And comics had matured. That is right when I got into Sandman and Hellblazer and all kinds of, Vertigo hadn't started up yet. The Sandman and Hellblazer were under the DC imprint until they did go to Vertigo, but it showed me that comic books were not only they had matured, but they were interesting and fun and exciting, and they weren't any of that Silver Age silliness that I grew up with, but still have nostalgia for. But they were an important medium for people and to people, and I thought this was just a crazy, amazing story with crazy, amazing art and a concept that just blew my mind. So I have a deep well of love and emotion, and a big part of my heart goes out to Frank Miller and his Dark Knight Returns, because that marked the time when Omnidog returns to comic books. So there's the first important book to me. Now we're going to be jumping around time periods. The next important book to me happened, I'm guessing, around 1990. Let's take a look at when this was first published. 2000. Okay, come on, let's get it going. I'm gonna say 1990, 1991, and I'm talking about, of course, Marvels. This did for Marvel what Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns did for me for DC. This got me into Marvel in a big way. I had not been a Marvel fan previous. I was a DC guy growing up. And this, to me, was just a groundbreaking, remarkable story with art that I had never seen the likes of before in my life. Alex Ross art, and of course, Kurt Busiek, who I'd never heard of at that point, writing this amazing story of what it would look like from ground level, this photographer, and the people he is associated with, and, friends and family and the people at the newspaper he worked at, what it was like for the regular people, the ground level people, to look up in the sky and see these superheroes. And it just changed the way I looked at comic books yet again. And I developed a fondness for Marvel books after this. I knew who all the characters were, Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and stuff, X-Men, but I had never seen that kind of perspective before. And I thought, what an amazingly great idea to see what these Marvels are like up in the sky from the regular Joe perspective. And of course, the Alex Ross art, I had just never seen anything like it before in my life. And the story, if you don't know, most of these books you're probably going to know, but if you don't know, it's about a photographer that witnesses and is a witness to the proliferation of all these amazing Marvels up in the sky, and what it was like for regular people to experience it. And of course, I had to relive the absolute horror of losing Gwen Stacy again. Yeah, I did collect Spider-Man at the time when we lost Gwen Stacy, and you can tell it still affects me. But I had never seen anything like this, and again, it marked a real, it resonated with me about how important comic books were to me, and how important they were as a medium where you could do things in comic books that you couldn't necessarily do in other forms of pop culture media. This is the deluxe version, which comes with a remarkable amount of really cool stuff in the back. I have the platinum edition, and honestly, as much as I love Alex Ross's art and love the story, it was just too big. for me, I had to put it on the floor to look at it. So I sold that and I just got the deluxe, which is much easier to read. But again, this was important to me because it solidified my belief that comics had matured and had matured along with me at that point. They were right up my alley. These were books that were super interesting to me and really reignited my love for comic books. So Marvel's is number 2. And number 3 is an important book, but not for the reason you might think. This is Naughty and Nice, The Good Girl Art of Bruce Timm. Now I've been lucky enough that I have the version that has the licensed characters from DC in it that the newer editions do not. Let me see what I can actually show you because it's definitely good girl art. This looks okay. But it is the, okay, can't show you that. No, I can't show you that. No. What's going on here? Okay, I can show you this. But it was my first real introduction to Bruce Timm's art. I hadn't seen Batman, the animated series yet, and I'm still almost done. I'm still working on it. I'm almost done. But here is the part that got printed that is now not available, I believe, in the current reprint of it. But I like the fact that it's a whale still. There aren't very many whales left, which is fine. It's good for people. But the reason this is important to me is that it was just, here's Big Barda. This was probably the beginning of my love of cheesecake and good girl art and stuff. But the reason this book's important to me is because it was given to me. At the time, it was a whale. It was a big whale at the time, 2015, I think. And I was in the Omnibus Collectors Facebook group. I was an admin in there and friends with Riley, and it was a happening Facebook page for a long time. And this guy named Mike Noah just sent it to me, free. And I said, what did I do to deserve this? And he said, my motto is, and my wife, our motto is, lift people up. So in other words, he was doing it because he knew it was going to make me feel good. No strings attached. Mike didn't just do it with this book. He gave me so many whales at the time that were going for multiple of hundreds of dollars, that some of them have been reprinted, some of them not. He sent me JLA versus Avengers Absolute for free. He sent me a ton of these books for free, just saying, lift people up. And that gave me a new attitude on life, really. I started in that group. This is how I got my name Omnidog, because my little avatar, the picture I had, my profile pic, was my dog Archie at the time. And it still is. And using his generosity as sort of my philosophy going forward, I sort of became known in that group for finding books for people, going out of my way, going to every comic book store that I could, no matter where I went, and finding books for people. Now, I didn't give it to them for free. I asked that they paid cover price. I did not charge them more than that, but I did ask because, quite honestly, I probably found 250 to 300 books for people using Mike's philosophy of lift people up and make people feel better. And it got to the point where people were sending me their want lists. And they were saying, if you're ever out and and about and you find this book, could you let me know? And I went on what I called the Great Northwestern Comic Book Trip, where I went out to California, and I started in the central coast of California, and I made my way up to Oregon, where my sister lived. And I went to every comic book store I could find, and I got so many people, so many books that were so hard to find, and they were so happy. And that's when they started calling me Omnidog. And it was a good feeling. Mike was right. It was a good feeling to be nice to people and to help people out. And it was a really good feeling to sort of pay it forward and to just generally help people out. I got a really big kick out of it. I really enjoyed helping people find the books they wanted. So I really that's why this book is so special to me, because this is still my prized possession that I will never let go of, because of Mike's generosity, and he and his wife's attitude helped shape my attitude. It changed me. It made me, I honestly think, it made me a better person. So that's the book number 3. And peace and love and shout out to Mike. If you're watching this, you already know how much you mean to me, buddy. So we haven't spoken in a while just because we've lost touch with each other. The Facebook group isn't what it used to be, and he's moved on to a different job and stuff. But as far as I can tell, he's probably still the same great guy, and I appreciate him. Now, the next book, if you've watched my show at all, this won't come as a surprise to you, that they are now known as the hard traveling heroes. Hard traveling heroes. But back then, Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams was a penciler, and mostly Dick Giordano did the inks, but it moved around some. But I remember being 11 years old in the not the comic book store. This was back when you had to find your comic books on a spinner rack at the drugstore. And I saw this comic book, and I liked Green Lantern in the Silver Age, and I collected him and looked at it, and I really liked it. I loved Silver Age Green Lantern. So this was 1970, so I was 11 years old. And I saw this comic book. And I said, what's going on in this book that Green Arrow's shooting out Green Lantern's lantern? First of all, I didn't know that an arrow could do that, but it was symbolic of what was going to be happening in this book. And probably one of the most famous pages in comics history is right here, that Dennis O'Neil wrote and Neil Adams and Dick Giordano inked. And you can see immediately how important, first of all, how important the art was. Because Neil Adams always said, if superheroes existed, this is what they'd look like. And I had seen Neil Adams' art before, but I think I maybe had seen it in World's Finest up until that point, the end of the Silver Age, and not Batman yet. Covers for Superman, Action Comics, things like that. And it, for an 11-year-old kid to read about racism being addressed in comic books, and I mean, they really took it on. Dennis O'Neil really took it on. This one's by Adams and Frank, oh boy, Giacoia. Sorry, Frank Giacoia. But they went on a tour of America, Green Lantern and Green Arrow, and the little Guardian from Oa with Black Canary. And this was it went from 76 to issue 89, I think. It did not come out regularly because, Neil Adams was meticulous, and he was pretty slow. It went to 86, 88, 89, 89, yeah. And so this book collects the most important part to me, and that was 76 through 89. Because they tackled a lot of social issues, and I think it was the birth of comic books getting a social conscience. You could argue that Spider-Man took on issues like that earlier, but I think this marked a real period of change for comics, and it's considered, I consider it, the beginning of the Bronze Age, the end of the Silver Age. And not only is the art fantastic and as real could get at the time, but the writing, Denny O'Neil took on all kinds of social issues, especially, let me find this one because it's another famous cover that, and I picked this one up too. My Ward is a Junkie. And Denny O'Neil tackled drugs, and Speedy was on heroin, and it was a big deal. And it was a really big deal that Denny O'Neil apparently had free reign to tackle whatever societal issues he thought were necessary for him to tackle. And it was amazing. The art was amazing. The stories were amazing. And here's the first John Stewart, the first Black Green Lantern. For an 11 and a 12-year-old, I first to admit, I grew up in a very, I was not aware of the ways of the world at 11 and 12 years old. I can promise you that much. And this was an eye-opener to me that comic books could actually be so important that they had a social conscience. And I still have that issue of Green Lantern, Green Arrow. I think I got it graded, and it's in the safe deposit box because I'm never selling that. I think it graded out at about 8.0, 8.5, which I think is pretty good for an 11, 12-year-old to keep it in that good a shape. It was just, it just blew my mind. And I think it blew a lot of other people's minds. It was a very popular, amazing run. It had to stop at 89. For various reasons, mostly because Adams couldn't keep up with the schedule. I'm not sure that he and Denny O'Neil got along. As a matter of fact, I know they did not, but that doesn't lessen the impact of this book to me. This book, as I said, a lot of these books, they have one thing in common. They were life-changing, and this definitely changed my life, showing me that comic books could take on the important issues of the day in society. Politics, race, equal treatment for women, drugs, it's all in there, and it's amazing. It's so important to me that I'm never gonna sell that issue, and I'm never gonna get rid of this absolute. It brings back good memories of being a little kid that had his eyes opened, and it's very important to me for that reason. And then the last book is important to me because let's not forget, comic books need to be fun. We're in this hobby because they are fun. We have fun reading them. That's the whole idea. Whether the subject matter's serious or not, whatever, we enjoy this. This is the best hobby because we get to read what we collect. Other hobbies, they don't get what we've got. They don't get to read what they collect. And Harley Quinn by Connor and Palmiotti with a wide variety of artists. But I wasn't really, as I said, I'm still working on finishing Batman the Animated Series. I'm almost done with it. And I can see why it was so important to so many kids growing up. And of course, that's where Harley Quinn started, was in Batman the Animated Series. And this is the New 52 run, and this is what made me fall in love with Harley Quinn. This book is so much fun. I just loved it. And it started me on collecting everything that Harley had done before. It has me collecting everything that Harley has done afterwards. I don't care how poorly it's written or how greatly it's written. I love Harley in a not responsible manner. Whatever it is, I just think Harley is a blast. And this book just was super fun. She had thrown off the shackles of the Joker, set out on her own to live her own life. She ended up having a giant apartment building on Coney Island with a wax museum at the bottom and a bunch of crazy tenants in it. But boy, this book is just solid fun. Laugh out loud to me fun. And Palmiotti and Connor, God bless them. I have this book. I have the Omnibus Volume 2, and I just kept my hardcovers for the deluxes for Rebirth. But I love this book, and this is what turned me on to Harley, and I have never looked back. I just think she's my favorite character in all of comics easily, and I have so much fun reading her and enjoying her, and it is just I love comic books. They are so fun, and we are so lucky that we get to have this great hobby. And this is Harley is something that I have double and triple dipped on. Not only do I have the hardcovers, but I also have some trades, and I also have all the single issues. And I finally was able to get a copy for myself of Batman the Animated Series number 12. Oh, that was a solid crack. The binding's fine. Batman the Animated Series comic book number 12. I got it for a good price. Prices have come down. And so now that's in my collection, and I have everything in single issues. And yes, I'm crazy, and I'm crazy for Harley, and I just have a blast reading her. And that's why this book is so important to me, because it spurred my love for Harley Quinn, and I just have a blast reading her. And you out there, you need to have a blast reading comic books too. Hopefully that's why you're tuned into my channel, because hopefully you feel the excitement and love and fun that I feel whenever I read comics. And so I've now done the 5 most important comics to me challenge, and the tradition is to pass it on to somebody, and so I'm going to pass it on to Taylor Talks Comics. It is now going to be up to him to give his 5 most important comic books to him. And I appreciate your watching this. This has been a lot of fun to make. Sorry it took so long, Jake, but I did make it. And I hope you enjoyed it. Peace and love. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, hit the like button, watch my videos. I have a library of over 800 videos. Peace and love, peace and love. Thank you for watching. Peace and love.